Picture this, New York City, 1950s, the birth of modern advertising, a city pulsing with energy, optimism, and an insatiable desire for the new. The war had ended, soldiers were back home, and the economy was booming. This post-war boom led to an explosion in consumer culture. Suddenly, there were new products, new brands, and new desires flooding the market. This era marked a seismic shift in the world of advertising. It was no longer just about selling a product. It was about selling a lifestyle, a dream. Advertising agencies began to wield an unprecedented power, influencing and shaping public opinion and consumer behavior. They were the architects of desire, the puppeteers of the public mind, and they were about to change the face of culture and commerce forever. But let's not forget a crucial element in this narrative. In the heart of this vibrant, fast-paced world of advertising, there were women. Often overlooked, they played a pivotal role in this transformative era. They were the secretaries, the copywriters, the researchers, and the artists. They were the invisible gears in the massive advertising machine, the unsung heroes who helped shape the industry from within. Women in advertising during the 1950s were a paradox. On one hand, they were relegated to the roles deemed appropriate for their gender, confined by societal norms and expectations. On the other hand, they were integral to the industry's success, their insights and creativity driving some of the most iconic campaigns of the era. These women were not just bystanders in the birth of modern advertising. They were active participants, contributors, and pioneers. They were the silent voices behind the catchy jingles, the compelling taglines, and the unforgettable slogans. They were the ones who understood the power of persuasion, the allure of aspiration, and the magic of storytelling. That's the stage set, a booming industry, and women standing in the wings, ready to step into the limelight. The curtain was about to rise on a new era of advertising, and these women were not just ready to play their part, they were ready to redefine it. Now, let's delve into the world of women in 1950s advertising. During this era, women often found themselves in secretarial or junior positions, roles that were considered fitting for their gender at the time. Picture the bustling ad agencies of New York City, brimming with creativity and innovation, yet marred by the stark gender divide. Women were the backbone of these agencies, managing the day-to-day operations, but their contributions often went unrecognized. Sexism was rampant, creating a challenging environment for women to navigate. They were expected to be subservient, to blend into the background, to support rather than lead. The glass ceiling was not just a metaphor, but a tangible barrier that kept many talented women from rising in their careers. But it wasn't all gloom and doom. The 1950s also saw the emergence of some trailblazing women who refused to be confined by societal norms. They dared to dream, to aspire, to challenge the status quo. Women like Helen Lansdowne Resor, who became the first female creative director at J. Walter Thompson, one of the world's oldest advertising agencies. Resor not only shattered the glass ceiling, but also paved the way for other women to follow in her footsteps. Then there was Mary Wells Lawrence, who started as a copywriter and went on to co-found Wells Rich Green, an agency that would become synonymous with some of the most iconic ad campaigns of the 60s. Lawrence was a force to be reckoned with, a woman who defied the odds and left an indelible mark on the industry. These women and many others like them were pioneers, pushing the boundaries of what was deemed possible for women in advertising. They faced discrimination, bias, and countless obstacles, yet they persevered, proving that women were just as capable and deserving of recognition as their male counterparts. Despite the challenges, these women were pioneers, setting the stage for the revolution that was about to come. As the page turns to the 1960s, the winds of change began to blow. The 1960s were a time of profound upheaval and transformation, not just in America, but around the world. The seeds of change, sown in the previous decade, began to blossom, with the women's rights movement gaining significant momentum. This societal shift began to seep into every nook and cranny of American life, and the advertising industry was no exception. The women's rights movement was instrumental in challenging the status quo, and it started to shake the foundations of the advertising industry. The industry began to take note of the changing tides and started to adapt. In the 1960s, a paradigm shift was underway. The number of women in creative roles began to rise. Women were no longer just the secretaries or the assistants. They were the copywriters, the art directors, the creative leads. They were the ones crafting the narratives, shaping the ideas, and building the campaigns that would resonate with consumers. But the changes didn't stop there. The content of advertising began to evolve as well. With more women in creative roles, there was a marked rise in female-centric advertising. Ads were no longer just speaking to men, but to women too, acknowledging their increasing purchasing power and their evolving roles in society. Advertisements began to reflect the diversity and complexity of women's lives. They were mothers, wives, workers, and consumers. They had dreams, aspirations, and the power to make choices. This era marked a significant departure from the traditional patriarchal norms that had previously dominated the industry. It was a time when the voices of women were starting to be heard, not just within the confines of advertising agencies, but in the broader public sphere as well. It was a time of change, a time of progress, a time of hope. The world was changing, and so too was the role of women in advertising. In the heart of this change were the women of 1960s advertising. As the decade unfolded, women began to step out from the shadows of the industry, making their mark in unprecedented ways. They began to claim their space not just as secretaries or assistants, but as copywriters, art directors, and even agency heads. The industry started to see the rise of prominent figures, women who would not only shape the decade, but also the future of advertising. There was Mary Wells Lawrence, who co-founded Wells Rich Green, one of the hottest agencies of the time. Lawrence was a dynamo, known for her creative genius and daring approach. Under her leadership, the agency created iconic campaigns such as I Love New York and Plop Plop Fizz Fizz for Alka-Seltzer. Another trailblazer was Phyllis K. Robinson, the first female copy chief at an American advertising agency, Doyle Dane Bernbach. Robinson was behind the groundbreaking Volkswagen Think Small campaign, challenging conventional norms and rewriting the rulebook of car advertising. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Women in the 1960s advertising world faced significant challenges. They had to juggle societal expectations of the time, the glass ceiling in the workplace, and the struggle for equal pay. But these challenges didn't stop them. They persisted, they broke barriers, and they laid the groundwork for future generations. The 1960s also saw women influencing the portrayal of women in advertisements. They pushed for more realistic and respectful representations, challenging stereotypes and advocating for a more inclusive industry. The decade was a turning point, a time when women began to shift the narrative not just in the ads they were creating, but within the industry itself. They made significant strides, pushing boundaries and reshaping the landscape of advertising. The 1960s were a time of progress, with women stepping into the spotlight and starting to shape the industry in their own image. They were pioneers, advocates, creators, and leaders, and their impact continues to be felt today. The story of women in 1950s and 1960s advertising is one of resilience and revolution. These trailblazers, these pioneers, they didn't just break the glass ceiling, they shattered it, forever altering the landscape of the advertising industry. Their legacy? It's written on every billboard, every magazine spread, every digital ad that graces our screens. It's in the creative campaigns that challenge societal norms and push boundaries. It's in the diverse voices that now have a seat at the table, voices that were once silenced or overlooked. These women, they didn't just create ads, they created a revolution. They paved the way for future generations, proving that creativity and innovation are not bound by gender. They showed us that advertising isn't just about selling a product, it's about telling a story, sparking a conversation, making a connection. Their influence on modern advertising cannot be overstated. They brought a fresh perspective, a different lens through which to view the world. They championed diversity and inclusivity. They pushed for authenticity and honesty. They made us laugh, they made us think, they made us feel. They challenged the status quo, they questioned the norms, they dared to be different. They taught us that advertising isn't just a job, it's a platform to inspire, to provoke, to incite change. Their impact on the industry is immeasurable. They didn't just change the game, They rewrote the rules. They transformed advertising from a male-dominated field into a space where everyone, regardless of their gender, has the opportunity to shine, to create, to make a difference. These women, they didn't just leave a mark, they left a legacy. A legacy that has inspired countless others to follow in their footsteps, to dream bigger, to strive harder, to defy the odds. From the shadows of the 1950s to the spotlight of the 1960s, these women reshaped an industry and left a lasting legacy that continues to inspire today. Their story is not just a chapter in history, it's a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of resilience and revolution.